Hey, everybody. As recruiters, we all know that hiring can be one of the most challenging parts of running a business. Whether you're a startup looking to build a dream team or a well established company aiming to streamline your recruitment process, the right tools can make all the difference. TeamTailor is a powerful all in one recruitment software your candidates and team will love. TeamTailor isn't just a piece of software, it's a way of working. With TeamTailor, you get everything you need in one place: powerful analytics, an AI assistant, customizable workflows, powerful integrations, and more. Plus, TeamTailor is easy to use and implement. You can onboard hiring managers with minimal training and get started right away, thanks to easy implementation and an intuitive, user-friendly interface. In fact, 94% of their users report better team collaboration, 97% see an increase in qualified candidates, and 89% say their hiring process is faster. If you're focused on the candidate experience, it's at the heart of their ATS. Just ask any of the 4 million candidates who connect with customers every month. Join the ranks of over 150,000 recruiters and more than 8,500 companies like Oatly, Porsche, and OneFlow who have transformed their recruitment with TeamTailor. Discover the new way to attract and hire top talent and see the results for yourself. Hey, what's up, everybody? You're here with Steve Levy, globally recognized talent acquisition leader. Candidly, if you don't know who Steve is, you should probably not be in recruiting. What's up, Steve?
It's Friday, isn't it?
All day, man, all day long.
Yeah, except I woke up early, and that first cup of coffee at like 5:15.
5:15
Yeah,
Eastern? You're up at
yeah,
5:15?
yeah. I was a little bit late today,
Okay. Tech
and I got
bros love the what's your stack, what's your daily routine. So if Steve's up at 5:15, what are you doing?
no. See that's a these false comparisons. It doesn't work like that. I was born in the morning. I was a swimmer. We swam from 5 to 7 in the mornings, which means we were up about 4:15. And I just like the morning. Go out. Dad and I were skiers. Go out skiing. Have to leave early to drive up to the mountains. I always got up early.
Sure enough.
And
Swimming
that's
open waters, competitive in the pool. What were
both.
we
Oh
doing?
yeah, I was a competitive swimmer, open water, an ocean lifeguard for 34 summers. Much to the chagrin of people who were in the business who were always never understood how I could disappear from like May to September and then reappear all of a sudden.
Did you say
But that,
34 summers?
yeah, 34 summers.
Did you
Lifeguarding.
train lifeguards? And obviously, I mean, you don't spend 30 years swimming on the beach lifeguarding
No,
without training.
no, since you're a New York State boy, haven't you ever heard of Jones Beach?
Yeah, absolutely.
I lifeguarded at Jones Beach for 34 summers.
Sick.
Why do you think all my ink is nautical? It's all ocean. Everything is ocean and then stuff. So
Well, good job putting some sunscreen on it so it didn't fade out. That's pretty baller, man.
well, yeah, you wouldn't realize I was 87 years old, would you?
Yeah, you look great for 87. I wouldn't say like a day over 81.
No, something like that. Yeah, you bastard. No, I mean my dad's over 100, and yet granted he's starting to look like a Shar-Pei, but that's genetics. I seem to have pretty good genetics when it comes to skin. Except early again, you come close up, it's like, oh look, those are the back roads up where you grew up. That's what it looks like. It's a map.
That's awesome. Well, hey, you jumped into it and flashed the skin. I've been chewing around this idea of doing this thing called Inked In. So let's do Revel TA Inked In edition on the spot with Steve Levy. Tattoos, piercings, body mods. Like, we've got this idea of professionalism in the workplace. I think recruiters have always lived like probably 9 lives like a cat and have some pretty cool stories. That's why I like being a part of the recruiting community. But
Tall
what are your
tales,
thoughts?
tall tales, many tall tales.
What are your thoughts on professionalism? Being like tatted up, pierced up, blue hair. Like, what do you think professional means in work today?
Well, I don't have an opinion on blue hair for obvious reasons. I don't care unless if you have if as part of your TA organization or your company you have an assessment rubric that assesses the color of one's hair and how that impacts job performance, I'd really like to see it because I'm calling BS on that one.
Hell yeah.
Number two, piercings. I remember back long, long time ago when I had my first ear off. It was your ears pierced. It was just something to do. I remember I got it. It was I was at a actually an outdoor Bob Marley concert in New York City. A friend of mine, I told her, look, I've been thinking of getting a pierced ear. She goes, oh, okay. Took an earring out of her ear, dipped it in her beer, grabbed me, and popped it through.
That's awesome.
I remember, going back home that night. I wore a sweatshirt around home for a couple of days because I didn't want Dad to see it.
Yup. I remember,
Of course,
man, I went to New York City, got my lip pierced, came home. My dad came home that weekend. He wasn't supposed to be home, and it was, what the hell is in your mouth? You better take that out before your mother sees it.
Well, of course, my mom said, Jewish mother, oh my God, Stephen, I'm going to get you a diamond. This is how we grew up. It was just, going over to the workplace, there are so many of these biases, and it's nothing but a bias. I've always wanted ink. I've always loved sleeves. I love the work that I went to a place called Honorable Ink up in Beacon, New York. Fabulous place. The guys there and the gals there, tremendous tat artists. And this was all freehanded.
Sick.
And I knew what I wanted. I gave some concept. The creativity in it. And it's nonsensical to me to deny employment to somebody who's creative and thinks differently than you do. I think we call that, that sort of level of homogeneity in thinking. We have many, many words for them these days. None of them are good.
And divergent attributes actually complement teams for growth over the long term. Like if you get a bunch of people that have similarities, they may be able to finish people's sentences and move faster. But over the long term, it's
I think those people are called spouses. Maybe you don't know that yet, but they're called spouses. They finish your thoughts, and
it's
very, very weird. No, but the thing, we sameness. I mean, think of the beauty of genetics. Just all the different combinations that DNA allows. What if they didn't have that? We wouldn't have. We talk about diversity in the world, diversity in nature. It's a wonderful thing. You see colors and capabilities that are just magic. And it's the same thing in the workplace. If you can show me one study, even a bad study, that says that ink in the workplace is bad for morale, they're just biases, Brandon, nothing more than that. It's no different than race, gender, sexual orientation, religious orientation, and anything, where you came from, what school you went to, how old you are, ageism, whether you're young or you're old. It's enough of that crap. I grew up in that era. I grew up in that, I grew up during the civil rights era. I'm 65. I was born in 59. My parents are from Europe. I watched we watched the civil rights. We've watched civil disobedience on TV. We watched the coverage of Dr. King's assassination. We watched LBJ's signing of the Civil Rights Act. We lived all that stuff. My dad came over from Germany in '38, and back then, people hated blacks and Jews equally. So where he went to school? The blacks and Jews went to school together. They all became friends. Biases are things that are learned. And, we obviously need to talk about them a heck of a lot more, particularly this year, 2024. There's the attack on DEIB, attacks on ESG,
yes,
attacks on human beings who, for some reason, you don't like for some asinine reason.
Absolutely,
it's absurd. It's shit, man. If you live, it's enough.
Let's talk about that. There was one email that hit my inbox this morning that caught my attention 3 hours ago, and it's from the founder of Rails. So David
Hmm.
Hansen, talking about the mentions of ESG and DEI and diversity in S&P 500 earnings calls, and he shared a chart from Business Insider. And I think it's a shame. I think DEI, obviously, so the report is that in the last 2 years, mentions of DEI have gone down tremendously. And in terms of what we saw with layoffs, obviously recruiters, HR folks got cut. I think the tragedy is the cut that happened to DEI roles. So we had folks internally moving forward with initiatives that are going to make the workplace more safe and more inclusive for others.
Hmm.
One of the observations I've had along the lines, and I'm still learning this, I'm curious. The DEI folks I talk to, when they move out and do consulting, they're actually able to say the things that they may or may not have the psychological safety or security of saying when they're in house, because in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, their financial security is protected when they're in house. So when they go outside and consult in, that's where the real work gets done. But I don't want to be naive in saying that. So what are your thoughts on that?
The irony of companies hiring DEIB teams and then the people leaving because they don't feel safe enough to say what really needs to be said. It reminds me of the equine paradox. And the equine paradox, for those who don't know, is that why is it there's so few horses but so many horses' asses?
Amen.
You simply can't be any more backward thinking than that. It is that simple. There is no explanation. You think it's important, your shareholders, your committees, the board of directors says we need to emphasize DEIB, ESG. It's important for the business. Until it is deemed not, and I will challenge you to find a methodologically reasonably pure study that states that is not good for business.
And to me, the whole business case for DEI always comes secondary to the moral, ethical, and human reason. Don't we want a diverse and inclusive existence? Life is far too short.
It's what, well, my dad's over 100, so I don't know about how short life is. So it's shorter for others than some than others. I mean, here's how I view diversity from a business point of view. Who are your customers? Man, they're everybody. What if we had everybody designing products and services for everybody? There's nothing innately, theoretically, geopolitically, socioeconomically incorrect with that statement. And if you can't, and if you can't see that when your leadership, when your company is reasonably representative, it's hard to get 100% represented. It just simply is. Just because as you go up to the top, it's just fewer and fewer people. That's just reality. But
that said, sorry, please continue.
No, finish out. This is like being married. You can interrupt me anytime.
I was going to say, let's tie it to recruiting. So I love community-based hiring, partnering with groups, partnering with marginalized groups and historically underrepresented communities, lobbying internal stakeholders to write checks. Write a check, sponsor a hackathon, sponsor a group. It doesn't cost much. You can do a lot with a little bit of a budget. How do you think about diversity hiring? I don't think diversity hiring is a specific unit. Whenever I see a specific title associated to it, the way I think is every recruiter, every sourcer, every hiring manager, every interviewer is responsible for increasing the psychological safety and inclusion of the group. What's
Correct.
Some of your playbook on sourcing for more diverse talent to increase representation?
There's no way to to say this, I'll try to say this as nice as possible. It's when most people think diversity, they think women and African Americans. 8 categories. I have to use fingers because I always, even though I know them well, I'm going to miss one. People of color, Latino, Hispanic, whichever term you prefer or don't prefer. Women, LGBTQIA plus, etc. People with disabilities, people neurodivergent, veterans, and indigenous people. I think the challenge with sourcing, with having a full, kaleidoscope of human beings, is that you have to do the research. You have to ask the question, are there, where do I find native, indigenous coders? Where do I find indigenous accountants? And do that for every blessed, functional group silo in your organization. And make the outreach, make the call. It's if you've never done something before, if you've never actively sourced, indigenous people who are indigenous to North America, make the call. Find the organization, the Sisterhood of Native Coders or something like that. Call them. Ask. They will enjoy. People love these calls. So you say, I don't know. I haven't done it. How should I do it? It doesn't require, an LLM to do this. It requires you to do the research, pick up these magical things, which can make phone calls, they're magic, and call people and ask them how you should get started. I mean, that's step one. Other step is, there are other things from a more strategic point of view. You need to know what your numbers are. You need to baseline your stuff. What do we have now? Where are the blockers? You want to look at your interviewing performance. See if some managers are, saying no to women more than they're saying to men. Do all those cuts.
Yeah.
So that's one level of data points. The other one is you need to understand your total addressable market. And you need to know, if you are committed to hiring indigenous coders, you need to know what the total addressable market is and where these people are.
That's a good point.
Culturally, you need to know the cultural elements of them, because maybe they want, maybe they want to stay where they are for a reason, and they don't want to relocate to your hybrid stuff, partially remote, whatever your marketing team is going to change it to this week. But
Yeah.
you have to have the data. You have to do the research. You have to ask the questions. You have to say, I don't know.
And some of that data is dynamic. So like looking at demographic data of a company based in New York City that's doing 2-3 days a week in New York versus San Francisco versus Des Moines,
Iowa.
It's going to be different. It's funny. I was going to say, I was talking to some dude in Idaho this morning. And in terms of reporting specifically, those reports that I think of are EEOC reporting and voluntary demographic reports that you can administer through an ATS. And I think partially our vendors are accountable. And there's a vendor that I've used on the applicant tracking side that allows you to capture demographic data, but doesn't allow you to report on it unless you pay for the higher tiered package. And so I actually was serving a client and
Someone
I went in to run.
They have to make money somehow, Brandon. So, yeah.
It's true. And I'm not going to name names, but like there's people that are prominent in this space that are talking around DEI and inclusion at this company. And it's like, yes, you got to make money somehow. But when your competitor is providing that reporting data, to me, that's like very baseline. Can we have this discussion?
Now, I know who you're talking about, but supply and demand, the market factors and market forces will dictate strategy.
Yeah. And I think
give it time.
I think like that's a good place to start is look at your pipeline and pass through rates by demographic. Look at the makeup of your team when you're going through a kickoff call and say, hey, how can we increase representation of women on this team?
Well, no, you want to look at, remember earlier we started by saying your company, in its pure sense needs to be representative, should. You want it to be representative of the people who are your customers. So who knows your customers? Marketing, service. Get the data from them. What does our customer base look like? Show me the demographic report now versus, hopefully if you have the data for a couple of years, show how it's changed. Talk to trends. I'm assuming then that there are, because that's how product works. If the trends are pointing to an increase in usage by a certain, group of people, then we want to build products and services for them. So they have the data. Don't just, excellence in diversity, excellence in building an organization takes every department. And every department has at least one data point which talent acquisition can use to make itself more effective. So
I think that's the strategic TA versus recruiter debate, like at the core of it right now. Like, I don't care if people are called talent partners or talent advisors or recruiters, like we're all doing the same thing. Like we're just operators.
Although the title talent acquisition recruiter, that's still a head scratcher for me. Isn't that like the redundant school of redundancy?
That's a good one. But yeah, like hiring doesn't operate in a vacuum. Like recruiting doesn't have a monopoly on hiring. Hiring starts when it's a person in a room that says, hey, you know what? I need another person in this room.
Hiring starts when your revenues start going up, when people start buying your product. That's when why I as TI, I always want to look at sales reports because that gets me that allows me to get ahead of the game. If I know that sales are going up in certain segments, but slowing down in others, that tells me something about what may be coming down in the near term from a hiring request.
Okay, so make sense of the venture capital market that we saw in the last 4 years, call it. Hiring spree, high water mark on salaries, capital was basically free. Now we've got a market that's completely uncalibrated to the reality of work. And you have an entire generation almost that expects six-figure salaries for non-technical roles. You have engineers coming out of school expecting 150K. Inflation is here. Young people can't buy houses. Like, let's talk about the reality of it.
Okay, let's do that because that is very good. It was Warren Buffett several years ago lamented how the stock market changed from being an investment platform to a speculation platform.
Wait. Is this the Margaritaville guy?
That's Jimmy Buffett, you bozo.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry,
slightly different. That's okay. We've got Jimmy Buffett, quacking away in Margaritaville. No, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway. For those who don't know,
I love the Berkshires.
I'm sure you would. Yes, they were named after him. Berkshire Hathaway, the most valuable stock in the world. And I think I believe Berkshire Hathaway has something on the order of they're sitting on $135 billion in cash to do things with. But Buffett is one of those long-term investment people. And so the last couple of years, behaviors have been driven by speculation. Would you invest in some of the money? Some of the ideas that come down through, these idea houses are real head scratchers. I mean, just look in our space, in the recruiting space. The number of times this is going to disrupt recruiting. I mean, nothing makes me throw up my mouth a little more than hearing that phrase. Okay, I've got an idea that's going to disrupt recruiting.
Isn't that true?
but the last couple of years, yes, capital has been cheap, and again, capital is not really cheap. When you get, eventually someone's going to pay for it.
It's true.
So there's a lot of hype to this high tech investment startup market, and unicorn valuations for companies that are losing $300 million a year.
And Charlie Munger was pretty critical of new ideas and disruption.
By the way, for those who don't know, Charlie Munger was Warren Buffett's right-hand person.
Specifically around crypto. And I think that example, there are times where I'm like, yes, Charlie's right. Let's be measured. Let's be pragmatic. Let me learn from my elders. My dad was a banker. But then there are other times too where I'm like, well, wait, millions of people lost a lot of very tangible money, actual dollars in crypto. And there are a lot of people driving around in Ferraris and Lamborghinis with cute little dogs and online that have made a lot of money from crypto. So it's hard. And I think life is not always as black and white as we think it is. There's a lot of gray space in our world. And we've seen this polarization across every vertical of human experience now, particularly within the algorithms we live within. And I think you went earlier on this notion of curiosity. It's so important for young people and all folks, just be curious. Don't assume that whatever in your algorithm is truth.
The best example of that, and I was to a friend of mine, I relayed this yesterday. And to those who watch this, and I think I might have asked this to you, when you're reading a book, books are the things that you can actually pick up in your hands, just if you're curious, and you come across a word that you don't know. What do? Do you look it up? I have to know what this word is. That's me. Or do you hum over it, hoping you'll get some sort of sense of what it is down the line? Curiosity is something that, what was the book I read? Orbiting the Giant Hairball.
Oh, I thought you were going to say curious.
And I'm just wonder if I have it here. I want to look on the other side. It may be on the other side of this bookshelf.
Thanks for wearing pants today.
Yeah, it was only for you. No, I don't have it. I forget the author. It was called Orbiting the Giant Hairball. The fellow was the chief creativity person for Hallmark cards.
Oh, I love it. It's like a dream job.
It really is. And so what he would do later on, he would go into elementary schools, and he would talk to. I thought I had it there. Talk to first graders, get to first graders, and he said, how many of you want to be artists when you grow up? Everyone, hands go up because they're big. And he did that for each successive grade. By the time he got to the sixth grade, a few people would sheepishly, put their hands up. And so he asked the question, very, very good question. Are we educating the creativity out of people? Where does creativity start?
We probably are with schools teaching to the tests. Teachers are measured on performance, standardized testing.
It was a rhetorical question, Brandon. So yeah, so we really are. And I have friends of mine who teach, and they're been historically apoplectic over these standards. Teach about teaching to the test. Where's the time for creativity? I mean, do we do as adults? Where's our finger painting time?
That's a good point. I'd love to know, how do you find balance in one foot in the tech world, one foot in the human world? You have training as an engineer. What did you want to be when you grew up? How does it make you a good recruiter? Let's just jam on a little bit of being a recruiter and HR person in real life.
Oh, growing up, I wanted to be a firefighter. It just was one of those things. So many friends of mine are FDNY.
Sure.
I've had the bulk of my close non-recruiting friend group. They're firefighters, cops, and military. It's just who I've been around my whole life. And I wanted to be a firefighter badly. Badly. Then, I grew up, I grew up during the space era. I remember I was watching on, I don't know what it was, the actual footage, the internal footage of the Apollo 11 moon mission. Not the movie, not the movie, but the actual footage and it just brought back. I remember
It's
so
crazy.
strongly. That's the engineer. I remember when I was playing in my backyard. It must have been, I don't know, 3 years old or so. Back when we had Tonka toys. Tonka toys were metal; they were heavy. And my parents, my mom relayed this. I think it was my mom relayed the story. She looked out, and she saw me. I'd gone downstairs into my dad's shop. I gotten tin snips and hacksaws, and I cut off the roof of a car and it was well designed, well marked because I wanted a convertible. I
It's
just like,
awesome.
I always like, building things. I've always liked taking things apart. Always took things apart. Uh, Historically, some of my favorite TV shows are How It's Made.
Oh,
I
classic.
love that stuff. I remember learning to weld. I love welding. I love materials. That's what got me into being an engineer. I won some science fair contest in the third or fourth grade because I built, a lung out of a makeshift lung out of a bell jar with tubing and stuff like that to show how the diaphragm inflates the lungs and what. I just love that stuff. I wanted to, as I got older, I wanted to become actually a bioengineer. To design artificial body parts and hips and like the one I have now. Magical stuff. Magical stuff. Then later on, I got involved. Back then, you didn't have AutoCAD. You had to write your own. If you wanted stuff analyzed, you had to write your own software. So I wrote my own software to get to analyze all these mechanical things, all the forces and whatnot. And that's how I got in there. But I remember always, graduating from college and talking to recruiters and think to myself, not so nice things about these people. Quite frankly, how little they knew about about the questions they were asking me. And years later, I've had a chance to, you know, do college recruiting, co-op recruiting, and while I was, down as well, while my engineering career seemed to be going down, my recruiting career seemed to be going up, and you know, here I am today. I've had no training whatsoever, none. I am not a certified anything,
Love it.
but
That's what makes recruiting great. Is it's low. Like, yes, it's hard to get a job right now. I want to be, respectful of that, but like it's low barrier to entry, and like the learning curve um, is pretty inclusive, and it's a pretty good starting point. I'm certainly grateful that a recruiter, gave me an opportunity to learn and be curious and connect with other people. There's like a million ways to make a living, and
there truly are. I mean, for example, and I just always tried things. It's simply that. Like here, I'm putting in the chat for anyone to see. This is a Boolean about me. Okay, if you know Boolean search strings, this is a Boolean about me. I've always tried things. I've always, it's the Andy Rooney. Andy Rooney. You ever wonder why? What if we did it this way? What if we didn't ask people, I hope you're doing well? What if we found out how the LinkedIn algorithm really works and why it's giving you these results and not others that I can find outside?
let's talk about it. Let's dive in. So LinkedIn Q1, lots of hoopla. Everyone talking about X-ray is dead. LinkedIn put some restrictions.
No, they
There's
didn't. No, they didn't.
Let's talk about it. What happened? What actually happened? And what's happening now? Because I'm ripping Insight LinkedIn X-rays and popping candidates for Rex. I'm working today. So how did this get blown out of proportion? How did everybody start talking about it? And where is
I'm
that
not
like
going.
fear mongering coming from?
I'm not going to talk about where it started, but it was premature.
Okay.
Do I know? Yes, I know where it started, but it was premature. And the beauty of the global talent sourcing community is all of us go, Oh, that's bull. That's bull. No, no, no. Let me try a couple of different things. We tried a couple of different things, made some tweaks. It still works.
Yeah, I geek out on stuff. Um,
But I will have this private conversation with you, unless I think we might have had it already. But there are things you can still tweak it. Instead of just doing site searching, knowing and putting in a whole slew of phrases, understand anchor the concept of anchor texts, anchor fields on your page. If you understand anchor stuff, that's where you can use the around statement, around X. So you can look for a term within 10 words of another term. It still works.
so what was the caching issue then on Google? I know I usually A/B test Google and Bing. I use Bing probably more often, but
Well,
it seemed like there was a week or two where like Google wasn't caching the same way, and maybe that's where this started.
I suspect, and I go back to the days of when you used to, when you would get a search result, you'd actually be able to look at the cache version of it.
Mm.
Those are, there are a lot of things you used to be able to do online you can't do it today.
Do you ever use the
There
Wayback Machine from
all the time,
archive.org?
all the time. Wayback Machine is should be de rigueur. It's an arrow in every sorcerer's quiver.
So,
It's that simple. You have to use the Wayback Machine to
and for anybody who's listening who may not know, archive.org, you can run a search query against basically anything that's cached on the internet.
And it's interesting. Speaking of which, you say you look Bing versus Google. I'm going to put this website. You probably know about it. Bing versus Google.
Hey, look at that.
BVSG. If you click on it and take a look at it, you can do a search. It'll do the results for both. That way
It's
you can see.
bvsg.org. I'll add it in the show notes. I love that they have the old school Google logo too.
So do I. And the old school Bing. The only thing missing is Clippy.
Old school internet. Okay, I was talking to somebody the other day about stumbleupon.com. Could burn an afternoon on StumbleUpon. And now I think it's just really fun to think about iterative cycles of the internet and how we consume information, how that applies to our workflows. You talked about learning programming so you could get the right data for your job. I'm old enough to know paper resumes and scanning into databases and then being able to solve for mobile application processing. Obviously, you have a wealth of experience. Hiring is so vast. Now, recruiters in a pretty saturated market of folks that have recruiting experience have used a variety of tools, and there's a lot of self-serve that technology has innovated and does all of this for them, from analytics to sourcing. I think a good recruiter doesn't necessarily need to know the entire history or how to do something, but that awareness or curiosity on like, oh, how do I use Wayback to source, or how do I optimize Boolean searching? So what are your observations?
Well, look, I think human nature has it that when you become so good at using a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. And so this has worked for me in the past. I don't need to. I'm going to ride this train till it goes off the rails. Okay, that's fine. But think about what's really happening in recruiting in the LinkedIn era. I have jokingly, maybe not so jokingly, referred to LinkedIn as the OxyContin of recruiting. It's highly addictive. And it allows you to call yourself an influencer. Get these badges, top voice, your social selling index. Oh, I'm an influencer now. What are you peddling though?
That's a good point. And one of the things I really appreciate about you and your influence, Steve, is how much you're willing to give away for free. You have a genuine moral code. You have a level of integrity. You have demonstrated a commitment to the field.
That's that part. That's the only true thing you said so far.
No, and I'm not saying like flattery for the sake of flattery. I'm saying it. I think in our society now, the way people are making money, and like everybody has a spin, but you've put out some great resources for recruiters and sourcers over the years. Do you want to talk about that? Like,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
thank you.
Here's why I do that. It's what I remember most about human, but any person I've ever met, is how they made me feel. And as I've gotten older, like, I was an ass when I was younger.
Who was it?
I know that. I was an ass. I was arrogant. I would listen to no one but myself. And, some people came along and they smacked this shit-eating grin off my face. And, something happened. It probably started when I turned 50. Definitely changed when I turned 60. But I started craving two things in life, and really two things only. They fall into two categories: simplicity and honesty. It's I'm now at the age where I'm seeing my close friends from childhood die. Coming up on, not too long away from the 25th anniversary of 9/11, where my best friend was firefighter murdered in the towers. You start, your perspective on life changes from what can you do for me to how can I help you? And there is something very lucrative in helping others. And it's just who I am now. And I don't wonder, what switched it off. Maybe, life, dad, parents getting older, mom dying, all those things influence the people I hang. You discover through the years who your real friends are and what they'll do for you just because you will do the same for them.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. And friendship is, I think, the bright spot in our lives, family, relationships. When I think about recruiting, being able to have that system in which you described of simplicity and honesty can really move the needle. You don't need to have an overly complex sequence on a 7 to 10 day drip. Like just saying hello in somebody's DMs after a connection, and saying like, do you want to have a conversation around your career? Or do you want to jump on a call? I want to actually meet people I connect with online. That's
But
how
I
I met
do
you.
that. But that's what I do, and the people who work with me know that I do that. I have become I'm just angry at the laziness of this profession to give people real honest feedback, to not send a no reply email, because all the ATSs like do no replies, if you set it up that way, and you add the line, no one is monitoring this, do not reply, but sign up for our talent community, you silly goose, in case you see something down the line.
And what's worse is when then marketing scrapes the data from the ATS and throws it into their demand gen funnel. And all
Demand
of a
gen.
sudden, you get the email campaign from the consumer brand you applied to before you hear back from the recruiter. How many
Yeah.
times has that happened to anybody?
Look, and this goes to, I want to give, Jerry Crispin and Kevin Grossman big kudos for this. It was Jerry Crispin, and Jerry. I call Jerry the Warren Buffett of talent acquisition. So many, industry changing initiatives came from, under the hat of Jerry Crispin.
Literally.
And I'm literally, the hat. I'm fortunate that he's my neighbor now.
It's cool.
And he's my true mentor in this, and he's one of my partners in crime, but we won't talk about that. Along with other people too, who they know who they are. but they came up with this candidate experience. You know, for every bad, and thank you Glassdoor, and thank you before that, The Vault. If anyone's old enough to remember The Vault, which came before Glassdoor. And now it's what's the new one? There's some other new one now. I think it begins with a B. They're just bitch sites, and people feel, companies feel compelled to overload with good reviews to counteract the statistics. The bottom line is that the bottom line is the realization amongst so many of us early on, many years ago, was that every bad candidate experience means you're going to lose at least one customer, and I'll posit 5 to 10, because they'll tell people. And so quite a while ago, I committed to giving everybody feedback.
At what stage?
Well, at the stage in which they're dispositioned out,
Okay.
whatever stage that might be. If it's let's say they apply for a job, it's amazing what things you can do with your applicant tracking system. You can list their current title, aside from some ATS that ends in day that doesn't parse well. You can go first title, first company, second title, second company. Depending on the quick and dirty as you look, what you're looking for, and you can disposition them out. But that actually goes upstream to the intake discovery session. And again, I know OFCCP looks like every good recruiter does. But the inherent problem with our job descriptions, and this is, to solve the ills in talent acquisition, you have to keep moving upstream to the point where, where does this start? Where does this first trickle? And in many cases, it does start with that intake. And the order taker just says, Brandon, what are you looking for? I'm looking for all this. Fine, I'll find it for you. The talent advisor looks at it. Okay, must have 8 to 12 years of experience. Before we get there, I get that. What specific initiatives are on your desk right now that this person will address, handle, solve, deliver, work with? What are they? Define them for me. I said, just humor me. So you go through the process of defining what those key initiatives, and if it's technical is probably the best example. You go to the manager, what's in Jira? What are your epics and story points in Jira? Which ones are kicking your ass? Which ones are not getting done due to capacity issues? Whatever. You articulate those out. And I said, okay, you want someone with 8 to 12 years? Yes, 8 to 12 years experience. So if I find somebody who's done these things that are keeping you awake at night, but they only have 6 years, you don't want to speak with them, am I right? I go, no, I didn't say that. I go, yeah,
I'll talk to him.
Yeah, of course you did. I'll read back the notes. You said, I must have 8 to 12 years experience. Well, that's not. Oh, so it's not 8 to 12.
Exactly. Or explain the difference between 8 years of experience versus 12 years of experience.
You go back to you. Okay, Brandon, when you were an engineer, what did you know at 8 that you didn't know at 6?
Or looking at the full aperture of the environment they were with. Like I love hearing from candidates who maybe they were at 3 failed startups versus sitting cush at a big tech job. I'll take 3 failed startuppers any day over Fang, etc. Unless they were at Fang because they shipped a consumer-facing initiative. It was first of its kind. They were acquired by the company. They were a former founder. There's a time and place for everything. But man, tell me about your failed startup all day. I always have time for that.
And that's your bias. And it's not, but then we get into other things when the manager will say, I must have a career progression that's not jumpy. So, Brendan, I looked at your resume before I got here. 18 months, 22 months.
And that's being generous.
And so I know, being ha 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 ha. But the point is, to start. If you to again, we'll get back to the original question. But in order to solve the problems, you have to know what you're looking for and really know what you're looking for. And that's where I believe that we shortchange that intake session.
Yeah.
We'll call it a rec consult. I'm sorry. It's only going to take 15 minutes of your time.
No, give me 45. Let's actually
No,
sit there.
not
Let's
even
look at
that.
the data.
I do different. I will run up a docket on the hiring manager and their projects and people on their team ahead of time.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's my job, damn it.
I remember talking to a recruiting leader in our industry who about a process, and it was like a pretty deep, in-depth, probably had like 30 things that I want to know before I launch a rec if I'm working with X. And they were like, never in a million years would we do it this way. And it's like, hey, I'm saving us all time. I want to be thorough up front. And I think that's what's great about hiring is like, you can have pedigree, you can have experience. There's no one right way to do it. It's not a one size fits all approach. There's no recruiting jail. And it's being able to iterate and win. But you're talking about addressing the skills and performance and experience in order to deliver value in a new role. And to me, that tracks to skills-based hiring. Skills-based hiring is so hot right now. Everybody's talking about it.
Newsflash, Brandon, newsflash. We seem to talk about it every 10 years.
Exactly.
And it goes back several decades.
And so, I think skills-based hiring, earlier in my career doing cognitive skills tests, doing, if you want skills-based hiring, go to Criteria Court. If you want skills-based hiring, go to an Excel test. People are up in arms about skills-based hiring. There's a lot of sentiment in the market too around candidate pushback. But like we ask engineers to prove their skills nearly every time we interview them up to a certain level. If you're a hands-on keyboard software engineer, you're going through a coding test. You're going through pair programming, through the interview assessment.
But in order to do that right, here's the rub. And this is where they fail. It's where is your assessment rubric for those activities? For those who know, a rubric. There's an old parable of 12 blind men touching an elephant and then independently describing what they see. They're all touching an elephant, but because they don't have a rubric, that this will be soft, this is hard, this is wrinkly, this is smooth. The rubric allows you to ahead of time. You work with your team, you work with the interview team, you work with the function. Mind you, if someone out there is thinking succession planning, you're also thinking about the right concept too. So kudos to you. But if you look at all the constructs, maybe it's data structures, algorithms, coding and syntax, communication. If you do a paired programming exercise, you have then those core constructs. You want to have as few constructs as possible. 3 to 4 to 5 or something like that, because human beings just can't balance all those things at one time, especially in an interview session. And then you have basic, minimal, basic, strong, superb, and you define, data structures. What is absolute minimal? What does that mean in terms of person's skills, skills in that area? And then you fill in your boxes accordingly. And your training session is not so much the classic interview thing, but understanding what the constructs are and what the levels are.
Yes.
Because in a paired programming is presumably to measure what real life is like. You're coding, maybe, especially if you're remote. Yeah, damn, I can't figure this shit out. Brandon, can I bounce some ideas off of you? So that's the communication piece. It's how they articulate the problem and back and forth. So does your rubric contain statements that allow you to reasonably put someone into a certain box?
And that goes back to the intake. Is that
yes,
rubric?
It does.
That
yes,
rubric
it does.
is the anchor of the intake. And I think the most time spent in launching a new search should be the hiring manager calibrating themselves and their team against the competency-based questions and the rubric for what is strong yes versus strong no, and being able to communicate and articulate as a hiring leader, the
Yeah.
individual accountable for making the offer, the hiring manager,
And,
directing their team of interviewers to what they're looking for at each
and,
stage of
and,
the interview.
and just so Brandon, you understand what Brandon is saying is whatever system you put in place for the outside world to use, baseline it with your internal team. And if it's kludgy, if people get miscategorized, go back and tweak it.
And recruiters get scapegoated. Like we're always like, it's always our fault, right? I mean, like if you're going to be a recruiter, like you got to have thick skin and a bright smile.
Yeah, we're dirt. We are dirt.
Yeah. And that's fine. I kind of like it's cute. The crypto crowd, they love calling themselves degenerates. But like, shout out to my other recruiters who like have some real life degenerate experience. Like that's what makes a great recruiter, being able to connect with people.
See, part of it is particularly, and look. So just to tie this up, so the rubric allows everyone to be within. I don't need to have people sitting exactly at the same table, the interview team. But as long as you're in the same room or house or area of the house, that's good enough. Because then at the debrief, you're going to learn some more. At the debrief meetings are the ones that really fine tune the assessment rubric. Because you're going to be asked based on the areas that you interviewed for and what you objectively witnessed, asked, recorded. Is this person a strong no hire, strong no hire, hire, or a strong hire? By the way, notice 4 fingers, not 5. You don't get the middle average thing. No, you got to make a decision.
Yes.
And if you can't make a decision, the talent advisor goes back and says, if you're not sure, I think you should go back and call them and ask them, let's talk about what question you can ask them to get you to one way or the other. And of course, we have inventories of those. But then again, you get people who still, despite all that, will say things like, I just don't think Brandon is a culture fit. And what most recruiters do is, oh, okay, that's a no. Okay? We go, let me ask you a question. What question did you ask? And what was their answer that led you to that conclusion? I didn't really ask a question. Oh, so what? Did you have like a bad lunch? You have some gas? You have some agita? You got to go to the bathroom? What's wrong with you? Well, no, it's just a feeling I had.
What's that feeling, Steve?
Nothing more than feelings. No, feelings are nice, but they are biases. Culture fit, likability, get along ability are biases. And we have to dig in, and we have to dig into them. And ultimately, this all goes back to diversity.
That's a good bookend. And I think when I think about what is the job of the CEO, it's to they manage up to the board, they manage down to the team, they set the mission, vision, the values, the culture to drive revenue and deliver value to shareholders. I think an exercise for recruiters, and this is the way I think about it at its like baseline, is let's take the mission, the vision, and the values, operationalize them into competencies and attributes, craft behavioral interviews and hypothetical interviews against them, create the rubric, so that when you have the culture interview, it's not, oh, Steve and I both were lifeguards in New York. It's, oh, Steve has a bias towards action and a sense of urgency, to borrow probably Amazon, the most famous, team that hires for the culture fit, the bar raiser. The ability to articulate what we are looking for in the culture. And in engineering interviews, we talk about engineering culture a lot and the engineering values. How do you think about maybe taking that and doing the graduate level version of how I articulated it?
I'm a little confused. Can you ask that another way?
Is there a different way that you think about assessing culture or values?
Here's what culture is to me. Values and culture are two different things. Both value culture, values, culture, character. Culture, I define culture as what people do when there's no one overseeing them with a gun.
That's a good point.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, there are certainly nuances of that, but culture. We have our current culture: work hard, play hard, eat what you kill. That's there are many people in recruiting who grew up with the Glengarry Glen Ross mindset. Coffee is for closers. And by the way, in recruiting, if you haven't seen that movie Glengarry Glen Ross, you need to. You just need to watch that one. It's hilarious.
Would you be able to say like Wolf of Wall Street would be similar culture, maybe for the millennial Gen Z crowd, for a cultural reference?
Excess and screwing people, the heck with others. I hope not. Which could easily go back to Wall Street. Greed is good. Okay, Gordon Gekko, that's fine. That didn't resonate with me. You can regret it. Like, I'm a first responder. I still got the first responder mentality. I save people. I rescue people. It's just jump into boiling oceans and rescue people who are going to die otherwise. So I don't get that greed part. I mean, I get it, but it's not something that's in here at all.
Steve, I want to pull that thread, and I want to double down on the fact that we can give permission to a younger audience, to people earlier in the career. Like, you don't have to believe all of these norms that you've heard.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
By the way, you didn't. I didn't. There's a reason it's called experience. Here's the difference, and I'm cutting you off and I'm jumping ahead.
You're good.
What us boomers have, we have the memory of youth. I know what caused my scars. I know all the dumb things that I did. Me now going, whew, I'm lucky. Whew. Boy, if there was LinkedIn was back in those days, I'd have my profile picture front and side view. There were some bad things that were done. I'm not proud of. But you know what? How do you learn? And you make mistakes. You surround yourself with good quality people who aren't going to perfume the pig. They're going to tell you when you did well, and they're going to tell you when you screwed up.
Yeah, I think that's.
I've had good bosses like that. I've had my bosses who, if I adore them still, and if they called me up and Steve, I need you right now, no questions asked, because of what they'd meant to me, the lessons I learned underneath them.
Hands down.
And that's the only thing I can say is, if you're going to say I'm wrong, come to me with something. Prove it. If you, I'm not going to be skeptical, but I'm going to listen. If I'm wrong, I want to know I'm wrong, because this is borrowing from Jerry Crispin. Jerry refers to himself, I am a lifelong learner. I too am a lifelong learner. I bristle when organizations or groups or articles talk about best practices. I would prefer they would call them leading practices.
How come?
Leaders always change. Leading always changes. It's always something that comes along. Right now, we're in this paradigm shift of AI-ish.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm just reading here a red alert moments at Unleash. And some of these are funny. It's everyone is talking about AI is going to replace us. Look, if you continue to be inhuman in your recruiting and how you treat people, if you view them, I don't view them, my really good friend Derek Zeller and I, the late Derek Zeller, he and I wrote an article a couple of years back on Recruiting Daily called My Name is Not Candidate. And I don't view applicant. I don't view them as applicants. I really don't. I don't view them as candidates. I don't. I don't view them as talent. I don't. I don't view them as human resources.
Shiver.
They're people.
Yes.
And people, when you tell them things that they nowadays don't expect, all rejections, all disposition. Look, if you've interviewed with me or my team once, you get a phone call. You want a video call? You want to look me in the eye? I'll look in the eye and tell you this is why. And by the way, the reason why my teams know why, because we identify the criteria in the intake session. It's very specific. There's no equivocation. And so when we tell you about why it's not going to work out, and we list these 5 things, it's based on what we've seen and heard so far. But, then comes the next paragraph. We're human. We make mistakes. Maybe you didn't ask the question the right way. Maybe you just didn't get it out during the interview, nervous. Interviews suck. They make you crazy. Look, if based on these criteria, I've missed something or you missed something, let me know. I'm happy to revisit. I'm not kidding. Out of 1,000 people, maybe 3 or 4 will come back.
And we all have time for that. We all have time for 3 more.
And then I say, look, if I can help you any way, this is connect with me.
Yeah.
It's not like this career services crap from years ago where career advice, I'm not going to connect with my students unless I spoke with them first. Or some absurd shit like that.
Yeah.
Be human. So the point is, if you continue to be inhuman, there's a good chance you're going to be replaced by a non-human. That's the red alert.
It's also a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. This might be a little woo-woo for you.
Woo-woo?
Like if we
At my age?
If we keep talking about it replacing us, like, isn't it just going to do it? And like fundamentally for me, like there is no red alert around like AI replacing recruiting right now. Will it? Maybe eventually, sure. But we are able to grow with technology as it is learned through the populace. Right now, there's a lot of AI sourcing tools. Is it replacing recruiters? Maybe a couple. Maybe it's reducing headcount in some settings.
Maybe it's reducing spend on LinkedIn Recruiter.
Precisely. And that's very real. I think you can get a tool for a couple $100 a month versus how much is LinkedIn Recruiter right now? Like 10, 12 for a seat?
A lot. Not to mention all the fake profiles that they have.
Exactly. So let's break it down. What actually is AI in sourcing right now? What are these tools that are saying AI sourcing automation fundamentally at a technical level? Explain it to, say, like kindergarten, 3rd grader, 5th grader, whichever age you choose.
Kindergartners may know more these days. They got really good thumb usage.
They're tiny.
I know. They're tiny hand. They can work on these things. I get words that aren't even, the spell check can't even correct.
They don't need our reading glasses, Steve.
Hush. I think the best way to put it is every technology has a starting point, an improving point, period, shifting era, and then a read. I mean, it goes up and it scallops up. There are in many. If you search for generate a list of the 25 most popular LLMs, you're going to get all these. And each LLM, large language model, has underlying algorithms. There are similarities and there are differences, and there are data sets that are used to train them. And then the usage of them further add content to the data sets. In the same way that we tell sourcers, you may want to consider sourcing on a couple of different browsers and not just Chrome, because you're going to get different results.
Imagine
that's the same thing with these LLMs. It's one of my favorite. No, but to go. But the point is, it's it's AI relative to where we were 10 years ago. But I was building systems in the mid '80s. We used to call them expert systems, rule based programming, early neural network stuff, rules, Lisp, prologue. So I did. And so it's AI, but AI now and AI got 8 years ago. My friend Rob McIntosh and I wrote a series of articles back in May of 2016 on AI and recruiting, and not a whole lot changed since then. Theoretically, and we were pretty good at figuring out what the future might be. But AI, what is AI is going to continue to improve as the algorithms are tuned, as the data becomes better, as more people input things and get some sort of results. I'd like to see more of these models. Give a scale. Is this a good result or a bad result? That's going to help tune it. Much in the same way, the sourcing platforms that we know about. Hire Easy, Seek Out, Gem, and Tell whatnot. Good result, thumbs up. Bad result, why? And you tell and you tell them why, and then then you go back and that changes weights of things in the algorithm down the line.
You mentioned a couple of vendors.
It's going to get better and better, but still, because I've done training sessions for really good recruiters on using AI and how to use it. I can still do things. I can write better Booleans than GPTs can now.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally, when I think and hear of AI and sourcing and recruiting, it's okay. We've got a vendor who has a UI over an open source or API LLM, and they are able to leverage natural language processing based on the information we feed it.
Yeah.
HR tech, these vendors, some of them are fantastic people. I know you're friends with some of them. I'm friends with some of them, people that I will text after we finish this call. But however, HR tech is so cheap compared to sales and marketing technology, compared to developer tools. I would love to see in the next 3 to 5 years venture capital going into HR tech companies that are building proprietary LLMs. And I think the one that ends in day has the data set to train that model. What are your thoughts?
Sadly, maybe. Someday, maybe. Price has to do with, it shows you how important venture capitalists believe talent acquisition is compared to sales and marketing.
Steve, people are our most valuable resource. Hiring is our number one priority. We
By the
hire,
way,
develop, and retain top talent.
You took a CEO course, didn't you? That's what they say. By the way, don't forget when they do that, Brandon, they have to clasp their hands. It's people are our most important asset. You just use people and asset in the same sentence. What is wrong with you?
Okay, so
but that's what it is. It's how do we, man, maybe Workday has enough stroke to get it, but Workday also has enough cash on hand to do it themselves.
And does Wall Street have the patience in this market to say, you know what, we'll let you do your whiteboard academic thesis for 15 quarters before we see a potential return? No, they're going to take out a Super Bowl ad, double down on their true buyer, who's finance, not HR and recruiting, and see an immediate return and juice the stock price. That's what Workday is.
That's why, I go back to the Warren Buffett quote, lamenting how the stock market has changed from being an investment tool to a speculation one.
It's never been easier to be a billionaire, but harder to be a millionaire.
Okay. Good to know. I have something to live for.
Sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, but that, it goes to, how can we get people to understand the importance of human beings in the process, you know, it, I mean, that's the $64,000, maybe 64 million, maybe $6.4 billion question, depending on who you're talking to.
You reminded me of Dr. Evil there, $1 million, and the whole room laughs.
But I remember, where I'm trying to, I have to pull this up here really quickly, but as we're talking, I'll do it. Back in, I think it was um, last year, I believe it was Pew Research. Pew did a research on, I don't know if I can get it to you in time. But it was, in the short term, speaking to, heads of CHROs, how many here people believe in the next year, what percentage believe that AI is going to take over jobs? And the number was like, it was a low number. How many people think they're safe? And it was 72%. Over the next 3 years, the number shot up. So CHROs, now, CHROs aren't necessarily the most technologically astute bunch. So one has to, guess where are they getting this idea from that in 3 years from now, G&A, general and admin costs, are going to be shifted to AI. They're getting it from the CEO and the CFO.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's how they view the company. And it's not, and I'm not, it's not a question, I'm not judging. It's neither here nor there. But then it goes to the ethical discussion of what is the purpose of a company? Is it to serve, is it to help the people who are working there become better? Or is it to, saturate the, pocketbooks of the shareholders?
And sometimes it can be both.
Of course, it can be both. Absolutely, profit sharing. There are companies where profit sharing works well. There are people who live who are diehard. They have company mugs and they're proud and they wear it because they're treated like human beings, not like human resources.
That's a good point. One of the things that I saw on LinkedIn through layoffs was a lot of the posts around people who had tenure at some of these big tech companies, not diminishing their impact and what these tech companies have done over the course of advancement of the internet. But like you would see people that were like, here's a closet full of shirts or a drawer full of shirts, and they had dozens of just like company swag t-shirts. That's real. That means something to them in their lived human experience. And while that may not be what motivates me, I think as recruiters, as people, as human operators, we just have to understand what drives people in their motivation at work.
Mm-hmm.
And each person has an individualized employee value proposition. It's not one size fits all. And sometimes it's a closet full of t-shirts.
Sometimes it is. And, it would be nice to go back to that time. But it's we're just in an odd period where, in order to have a closet full of t-shirts, there has to be some sense of loyalty.
Mm.
And where does loyalty come from? Loyalty comes from how well you're treated in good times and bad, the good, the bad, the ugly.
When you think back on your career, what are a few times that the current market right now reminds you of? What were maybe moments of adversity that you've experienced? I think about the Great Recession when I was wrapping up school, obviously early 2000s with the internet bubble. But what are some other milestones that maybe job seekers can find solace in, knowing that they are not doing this alone and that the challenge they face right now to find fulfillment through their work is not terminally unique?
This goes back to it, with every economic calamity comes somebody saying, when you die, no one's going to give a eulogy about you and say he wishes he spent more time at work. No one's going to say that. They're going to talk about your relationships with people. They're going to talk about what you've done to help others. They're going to talk about the things you love to do. They're going to talk about, the furniture you made, or the pinpoint that you so lovingly did, or they're going to remember the pot roast that you made during family dinner, like my mom did. So, those are the things that we remember. But I go back to, I remember, you talk to your parents about this, the oil embargo of 1981. You weren't born yet, but there were massive gas lines, 6 hours long. You only got gas because of the last digit on your license plate, odd or even. And there are some people who literally didn't get the memo. Why? Because we didn't have these things. We had newspapers.
How much was gas at 81?
I can't remember. I'm guessing it might have ballooned up to 2 and change at the time.
Okay.
But I remember being stuck in Glastonbury, coming from somewhere, Glastonbury, Connecticut. I waited online for 6 hours, and I didn't realize I was the wrong digit. Slept in the car for the next day. Barely enough fumes to get to the tank, get to the gas. But I remember that, somehow we got through it. I remember, the Black Tuesday, 86. I remember my parents, I know how much money they lost. They told me I was old enough. Got through it. I remember, 93. 93 was the first bombing of the Trade Center. And it failed. Oh, man, we were feeling, we felt it. Again, 98, when the internet boom took off. Y2K, when I was running recruiting at $1 billion tech company, and we were tasked with building a Y2K team, hoping to God the world didn't come to an end.
It's crazy.
It didn't come to an end. 9/11, the period 2 years after 9/11, brutal. Came back. 2006, mortgage-backed securities. We came back. And so the real question is, there's two things. It's trite, but it's not a question of how many times you fall down, but how many times you get up.
I saw that on a candidate's profile, actually sitting right in front of me. It was that sentiment. And
if someone says that, I'm going to call them and say, how did that apply to you? Tell me in your real life. I want to talk to you about it. And so, but in each time, I remember bringing in personal computers. I built a network. It was there with Pitney Bowes. I think we helped build the network. I brought in, the 8088s. These were personal computers. They weighed 42 pounds a piece. If you go to the gym, one of those big 25, it's one of those weights, 20 kilogram weights. That's what it was. I remember putting it, on the internet when Al Gore bequeathed us the internet. I remember doing all that stuff and going like, oh, this is great. But as I've been there for all these changes, and the job changed, life changes, jobs change.
Yeah.
But the more you educate yourself, don't be scared of it. Understand it. You may not use it, but just understand it. If you want to understand things of AI, you can go. My favorite site is Grok, GROQ.com.
What does Grok mean?
I don't know. I know how to Grok something on Unix, but that's Elon has that for his. But GROQ.com allows you to pick one of 4 LLMs and just start playing. Type in a prompt and see what happens. And go, I wonder what if I change this word. I wonder what would happen if I do this.
Curiosity.
That's the curiosity and the character of helping others. If you learn something new in TA, teach someone else, call someone else that who's in the same boat and show them this. Share. That's why we have, things like, we have these things like recruiter therapy. It's why we have, Booleans and brews. It's why why Hung has recruiting brain food, and on and on and on. We just give back because we just want to share stuff. And mostly because we want to see if other people feel the same way we do. That's community.
I'm so grateful for this recruiting community as well. a lot of my friends and counterparts that kind of came up in recruiting and in tech companies the last few years. Like it
Yeah.
was baptism
Mhm.
by fire. We didn't have time. The pandemic also threw a wrench in things. We didn't go to conferences. We were working monster rec loads. So it's really cool to like come back up for air and meet people in the industry and shake a hand. I think my advice and the reason why I started this podcast to begin with is I just want to meet people that care about the field, that I can learn from, that I can hopefully share and provide forum for people to share their message. Um, and yeah, Steve, I know we've got a couple of things coming up. Obviously, RecFest is big and fun now that it's in the US. Um, we've got virtual TA week coming up in
That's fun
July.
too. I think I'm doing some sessions in that one too. I
Yeah,
think.
I'll
I
definitely be
think.
seeing you there.
And
One of the
and you and,
things,
and you will be in Nashville for RecFest in
absolutely,
September, because I hear that there two ding dongs are putting on a really great sourcing stage.
I wouldn't miss it. That's a fun one. Where else are you? What else is on your like annual bucket list?
There are a few things that are in discussion. I'm not going to put them out there yet. There are things I've done in the past, and then we'll see. It, a lot depends on what people want to hear.
I know what people want to hear. People want to
They want to
hear,
hear that this is over. That's what they want to hear.
they do, but before we do, let's wrap up with what's on your desk. I know you're a collector of
Ooh,
things.
what's on my desk? In no special order, I have a purple squirrel in a little Tito sweater.
Hey,
Don't
bottoms
ask.
up.
Purple. I've
Jeremy
got
Lyons will like that one.
yes, he will. I have the original purple squirrel crocheted one. Yes, it is the original one.
Handmade.
I have from a SourceCon the robot SourceCon.
All your
I
makes are
have
belong to us.
I have another crocheted unicorn.
That one's cozy.
It is, and I have things that my daughter has given me. For some reason, I have a lifeguard rubber ducky, and I have a patron rubber ducky. So the lifeguard rubber ducky saves the patron rubber ducky. I've got a couple of rocks and shells, vitamins. For some reason, an old can of Sprite. I don't know, but I have cubbies underneath it where there are things that I keep, and next to my desk I have too much crap.
It's awesome.
Too much crap, and I do have a relic from recruiting days gone by.
Oh, what do we got
And
here? What's coming? Yes. The OG monster. Is it a puppet?
no, I'm
Or
not on
just a
my hand.
stuffy? A stuffy.
I'm
Okay,
just
okay.
it's a
Yeah.
stuffy, and I remember
That's
got this
legit.
from Eric Weingarten. I'm guessing maybe 10, 15 years ago.
It's amazing. Thanks for playing along.
But that's what that's what's on my desk, and
Whoa.
nothing illegal, immoral, or fattening. To be honest, I mean, I keep occasionally I'll keep weighted bars just so I can do stuff during meetings and turn the camera off for a little bit. Always got to keep the reps up somehow.
Yep. Desk
Um,
squats, staying fit.
hats. I have a whole hook here of conference tags. I probably should get rid of those.
Steve, your legacy in recruiting is awesome. Thank you for spending some time with me today.
You're very welcome. We
Thanks
had
for the fast conversations.
we had a good talk earlier this week or last week. It was last week, wasn't it? Was it early this week? When did we speak?
We caught up last
Last
week.
week. Last week.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And looking forward
We
to doing it again.
Yeah, because we went over some cool sites, didn't we?
We did. I'd be happy to share them. Where can people learn about recruiting, sourcing from you? What's best?
Uh, you can easily find me on the Blue Devil. For those who don't know, the Blue Devil is LinkedIn. And it is the usual linkedin.com/in/Levy Recruits, LEVY RECRUITS. I'm Levy Recruits on Facebook, Instagram, I just use Twitter for shits and giggles now, not a whole lot anymore. Um, and if you do connect me on LinkedIn, you'll see I put a lot of my decks up on my profile. You're free to use them. If you have any questions, you're free to ask me. I allocate 3 hours a week just to, talk to people about the profession, help them with whatever they're looking for. You never
That's
know.
amazing. Well, thank you for doing it. And a good reminder is keep it simple, Sourcer.